And that's why people would want to come out and race. Want to guess why people don't want to race? Here's reason enough. That's our buddy Eddie Pullen again. 1914 Vanderbilt Cup race in February. Dead Man's Curve. We already said nobody died at Dead Man's Curve, so Eddie Pullen did not die in this crash. He wound up going kind of nose into the road over here. His wheel came off. Again, they're just trying to lean away.
Guys are running.
Oh yeah, they'll run for cover. Those guys are standing out there. The guys are sitting up here hanging onto the pole, watching the race. That's what goes on. It's a Dead Man's Curve, 1914. The way cool thing about this, 2 days later, they held the American Grand Prize race. They always ran them in conjunction, the Vanderbilt Cup and American Grand Prize race. 2 days apart, they were different lengths, and you get different prizes for these things. 2 days later, he came back with the exact same car and won the American Grand Prize race in this car. So he crashed out early in the first one, probably saved his car enough to where everybody else's car was tired when he ran 2 days later, but he won just the same, in the same car.
They charge admission for the spectators?
Yep, you get charged if you were sitting in a grandstand or if you were in the infield areas. But you could sit anywhere along the course you wanted to. The advantage to being along ocean somewhere is that you had the scoreboard up there, so you could kind of keep track a little easier of what the cars were doing, because they would go by pretty fast, and they really, I mean, they had numbers and things on them, but it was difficult to determine who was who. And it's 8.5 mile course, so even at 80 miles an hour or whatever it was a long time before your guy came back around.
Where's the track there? It looks.
He's coming on Ocean, and he's just turned onto Wilshire, so it's like everybody does these days. Instead of being in your left-hand lane and turning into the left-hand lane on the next, he's going all the way out, and he's not going to make it.
Where's Wilshire? That dirt road?
He's
right
on Wilshire.
there? That
That
dirt
is,
road right there.
absolutely. Yep.
How wide is it?
It's about probably 80 feet wide, because it was 4 lanes.
Is that cement blocks there that's a guardrail?
All dirt, or all wood. Because, and we think about it, we say, well, geez, all that wood, all that, like even at the motor drums, all that wood, all that lumber. Well, that's what they built with. They were real familiar with building with that. It was all simple framing stuff, which is what this was. And what they were really doing was protecting the houses on the other side of the piece there.
In those days, weren't those roads actually sort of graded and then oil poured on them?
Yep, they were graded smooth to take all the ruts out, because even if it doesn't rain, if you pull in horses and carriages and whatever else, and several automobiles that were out at the time, you create grooves in the dirt, and that would disrupt the cars. The auto dealers wanted the cars to go faster, because if you go faster, you set a new world speed record and you get bigger headlines. Okay, great. Well, where'd that happen? Santa Monica. Okay, grade our roads, make them smooth. You guys can go faster. We'll get bigger headlines. More people will come to Santa Monica.
Did they pack it down with a steamroller or something? So
They just graded it and oiled it. And in some places they were able to pack it. It was all done by horses and, big grading machines, and that was it, basically by hand.
Well, what's the difference between what's graded there and what's behind you, the loose dirt and everything?
Well, what happens is the cars weren't driving over here. So this was all packed down when they graded and packed the road.
Well, that's what it looked like.
And then
in
the
beginning,
cars,
and
then over the time, the cars were churning up the dirt and everything, so they were probably coming out about this far in the first place.
Leaving junk.
Oh, absolutely. And so it wasn't a smooth, we think of it today as, well, it's paved over there, it's nice and smooth. We can go around this corner pretty well.
people on the outside of the curves ate a lot of dirt.
Yep, like those guys.
That's old-fashioned marbles.
Well, he wasn't the only guy to go over. This is John Marquis in 1914. And he's at the same exact corner. So he's coming along, there's our palm tree again, and there's our cop guarding the street. He's coming along Ocean, and in this case, he had just passed for the lead coming down San Vicente, and he got the signal as he went by his pit, you are the leader. So in my world, I'm thinking he got a little excited, and he overcooked the turn. And as they say, he turned turtle. Now, Pullen went straight into the railing. So he didn't turn over. Marquis turned over. Did not die, because we're at Dead Man's Curve. Nobody died at Dead Man's Curve. Okay? But what's cool about this is you see he's got his arms out, his mechanicians out there, so they're doing all of this as he's turning turtle. And they thought they were going to save themselves. Of course they didn't. He scratched his head all up, made a mess. But he came back to race in Venice in 1915. So, Yeah, it was okay. The other thing that's fun about this shot, see this guy back here?
Taking a picture. Is he?
He is absolutely taking a picture. He's taking this one.
Oh, wow.
Look at this, 1914.
Amazing.
No way.
Head on,
That's cool, Dave. That
Backside.
is so good.
same car, same instant,
Wow.
focal plane shutter, 2 different guys. How in the world did they do that?
They kept that.
And there it is. I mean, look at that. And again, you can see, same instant. Here's his arm, bent elbow,
Yeah.
arm, bent elbow, the whole thing. That guy was right on, man.
Spectacular pictures.
It is.
Time code.
Look at that. Yeah, time code. And those are very difficult to fake.
Clear.
That's an obscure reference. You really got to know that one. But Tommy got it.
I got it.
There you go. But again, this is coming along Ocean, turning onto Wilshire. It's a 90-degree turn. Ocean at this point is also going downhill just slightly. So you're picking up some speed there. And then you turn the corner, and these are pretty high-centered vehicles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they
Big
got
wheels.
big, tall wheels, and the engines sit up fairly high, so they don't handle really well. I mean, they can power slide a little bit, but no. And in this case, the stunning part about this is that we have these matching photos of coming and going right there. I mean, it's hard to do that today with today's camera to get 2 guys to coordinate fast enough to get something along those lines.
Amazing.
Way cool stuff. It's a fascinating era, no doubt about it. So here's the other side of the course, along San Vicente. If you go down along San Vicente today, say you start out at the Veterans Center or over by the 405, you pull onto San Vicente and you come down the road, kind of snakes along, lots of trees, big green belt in the middle. That green belt is where Huntington's rail lines used to be. These rail lines. So back then, there was just one single lane, which is on the south side. Today, you have the south side and the north side and the green belt in the middle, which is where the train tracks used to be.
Yeah.
So they had developed that later on. What happens along here, though, you get the big S curve, it's a very fast place, and in 1916, we had a little drama, as you might expect. This is not Dead Man's Curve, therefore,
You can get
people
killed.
died. Yeah, you can get killed then. And that's what happened. Car got loose, broke a steering knuckle, jumped the curb, hit the tree. Tree hits a camera operator, a movie camera operator was over there, shears off a second tree, went into the lemonade stand, killed a woman, car comes apart, starts crashing into people. The driver died, mechanician was thrown clear, he was injured, but he walked away. And this was the beginning of the end of real road racing. They were racing on the real roads, hence the name real road racing.
Yep.
And early on in 1909, these guys weren't going terribly fast, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Later on, the cars were getting much faster, and you had more opportunity for disaster when that came about. Plus, people were starting to get used to seeing cars coming by, so they were more anxious to stand out and look, and more people were coming to the area who'd never seen this kind of thing before. The people that had been here for several years knew enough to stand back, or knew enough to be in the right places at the right time instead of the wrong places at the wrong time. And that really is what brought about the demise of racing on the real roads, and not just in Santa Monica, but other places in the country. We run Long Beach Grand Prix, for instance, today, and that's using real streets in Long Beach. It's a totally closed course. It's the same concept, but a different approach to the game because the cars are just too fast, and there's a lot of safety things to take into consideration. Back in this day, if a driver killed himself, got injured, whatever it was, they said, well, you knew the risk going in. And I feel bad for you, and we'll pass the hat, and, good luck to you. You start killing civilians, and we have a problem with that.
Lemonade lady.
Yeah, and you're wiping out the lemonade lady, and yeah, absolutely. And you can understand it, it makes perfect sense. So the racing went away after that. Well, here's Dario Resta. He won, obviously, 1916 Vanderbilt Cup race in a Peugeot. This is Resta here. Key point on this is that Resta, when he pulled into the pits after this race, before getting out of the car, he requested and got a bottle of milk. And as the LA Times said, he drank it to the dregs before dismounting. So it was not unknown for the guys to finish a race, 200, 300 miles. They would pull in, they would just sit in their cars with the car shut off. And they would just sit there because they couldn't really get out yet because they were so vibrated and shaken up and beat up. They couldn't get out of their car. They couldn't walk anyway. And they certainly couldn't hear for 2 or 3 days later because they had just big wide open exhaust. Well, he pulled in, like I say, drank that bottle of milk, so I think it's kind of funny to poke at the Indy 500 guys who, here, we got our big tradition. I said, yeah, but in 1916, Resta did it.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's great stuff because it's local history. It all happened right here.
Hey, Harold,
That's
Yes.
amazing.
those 295 miles.
Yep.
With an average speed of almost 90. Is that like including all the stops for like gas
Yep,
or tires?
absolutely.
That's
Everything.
So that means
90
that
mile an
in
hour
the
average.
straights, they would
Easily.
probably have to be getting up to over what 120 miles an hour.
In this car, easily 120 miles an hour. And that was the reason that they had in Long Island, which ran before Santa Monica, they had 24-mile long courses because they needed those long straightaways in order for the cars to get up to speed just through gearing. If you're turning and whatever else, you have to slow down, and it killed all your speed time. All your speed time, there you go. Well, out here you can see they were running 300 miles in 1916 at 90 miles an hour. That's half again as fast as the original race in 1909, and half again as far. So they were not only going farther, they were going much faster, which again is why this had to go away.
So did they make a bigger course, or did they
Nope.
run more laps?
Same course, they just ran more laps. And it took about the same amount of time because they were going so much faster.
It's interesting the way he's got his spare wheels there. I don't
Oh,
think I've
yeah.
ever even seen that like that.
They're tucked
In
in
the
there.
body.
This was a very advanced car. And I got another shot of it over here. Here's that same car today.
That's nice.
And
That's sweet.
you see, it's a very, very interesting car. Although, you know, we see all these pictures and they're all various shades of black and white. Well, these guys didn't know they were racing in the past because when they actually had these cars, this is more what they looked like. And that's what it looks like today. This particular car,
That's beautiful.
there were several of these Peugeots that were smuggled out of France just before World War I. And they found their way through the racing circuit to Los Angeles. This is probably the most significant race car in America today.
Where's that?
This is in
Did he?
Los Angeles.
Who's got it? I mean, somebody, collector's got it, huh?
Yep. It's owned by someone who asked me not to tell